And then it caused a problem on the key.
Whoa.
Thank you very much for joining us, episode of Film Club. I'm one your host, Andy Harrison. To my right, as always, it's Mr. Mifune, Andy Dalton. Every single week in Film Club, we invite you along to watch a film with us. We dive into some cinema's best. Welcome back here to talk it out. Andy, this week, we're heading over to Rashomon.
The Gate of Rashomon.
Yep. So, people have never heard of Rashomon, which I'm guessing there's going to be a few people who haven't. Let them know. What's Rashomon all about?
Akira Kurosawa. It's one of his most famous films. So I mostly know him from Seven Samurai. It's my second film I've watched by him. Rashomon is about a story of a murder of a samurai and potentially his wife. Turns out not. Told by 4 different accounts. Each account is different, and each account is there almost like a biased version to make them look like to get away with their not difficulties, anything that they did wrong, anything that they put them to shame, anything that they might have been a bit embarrassing about themselves. So they all deliver different accounts of the same story in various different ways. And it comes to a conclusion. It starts and ends with a conclusion that gets at Rashomon, the story being told by the final storyteller. Probably the most concise way, and a bit not the best way of just explaining.
So last week,
yeah,
we took a look at Vantage Point.
Please, I don't remember that.
And Vantage Point took a lot of inspiration from Rashomon. But Rashomon does something slightly different that we need to make a note of, I think, from the get-go. So Rashomon is not just, like you mentioned there, it's not just a simple recounting of the same events from different point of views, but it is the same events from a different point of views with different interpretations as well.
Yep.
Each character has a different take on how things went down.
Yep. Case in point, look at the start when you have the bandit. You look at his account, he's like, oh, it was a fair fight, everything. You look at the very last scene account, and it wasn't a fair fight. People were whimpering, people were running away.
Excuse me.
Bloody hell. He got a bit lucky and everything like that. And that's their interpretation. There's many different aspects of that.
Might be one of my favourite examples of it, which is this heroic, we crossed swords over 23 times. No one has ever crossed swords with me more than 20 times. And then suddenly he's like,
yeah.
It's so wonderful. So this whole thing, this idea of like people's and different interpretations has become known as the Rashomon effect.
Which is interesting. So the Rashomon effect is the idea where each account isn't it's not fully truthful.
Not reliable.
Not reliable, thank you. And a great example of this is anyone who's played Knights of the Old Republic. When you're on Dantooine, you come across a scene near a bridge and someone has been murdered and you have to interrogate the 3 guys, including the security droid. It was only 2 guys that have got like an opinion, and including the security droid. And the more you interrogate them, the more you get out and the more you can accuse them and say, well, actually this and actually this. And more their stories come from this complete opposite sides and start to come together, and you draw a conclusion from that and you get bonus experience for getting it right.
The irony that in a review about an Akira Kurosawa film, we're talking about Star Wars. Oh my god. So I want to point out from the get-go, one of the best things I think that he does. You're aware that Kurosawa is kind of a little bit obsessed with movement, right?
Oh, mate. Okay, can I just say it before you say it? You showed us a film. I can't remember which one. And he said, oh, look at the way he does this thing through the leaves.
Yes.
Those scenes at the start where he's travelling through the trees, there's an incredible shot, and I hope you get up here. And he's following the guy through the trees on his right side, the guy's right-hand side. So his approach is facing him from the left. And it comes across the path, and it follows the guy around, and he crosses the path. And then it goes behind some more trees and watches him walk away. And, fucking hell, to be able to do that and, convey that kind of movement, but also the way the guy goes.
It's great.
It's insane.
He has the camera moving all the time, but he's also obsessed with moving, nature and everything around the people. And one of the things that he does here, which is, taking it almost to the next level, is that he uses that movement to separate the time periods with rain. And when they're at Rashomon, narratively, they're all hiding under this big archway because it's chucking it down outside. That puts them together. But more importantly to you as a viewer, it means that every time you see that rain chucking it down, you know we're back in the real world. We're back in this time period.
Whereas nowadays, unfortunately, that kind of things, we look back in our first review, first episode, we did The Martian, and you have lower thirds telling you what planet you're on, stuff like this. It's done again in films like Rogue One, films even recently.
Well, look at Vantage Point 20 minutes ago.
Yeah.
It always had the thing of cutting to, it would come up on screen saying 20 minutes earlier.
And it takes you out of it. Whereas this, you revert back to that scene, you're like, oh, I'm back here, I'm back in the story. It keeps you in the film. Keeping on the subject of the weather, what I really love about this is how it's clouded, it's rain, it's heavily. Some people associate rain with depression and like kind of like moody and everything, and it's like uncertain. And then you look at the end when there's a bit more like you've restored my faith in everything and stuff like that, and the weather starts to clear. Sun comes out. What great use of weather in like conveying that emotion.
Really, really clever. And similarly, there's that thing early on with the breeze where he says that like as Toshiro Mifune is hanging out under the tree, and he's like, ironically, if it wasn't for that breeze, I never would have got involved. And when he says that, in my head, like with that whole like, I was thinking through the production, and I was thinking, how the hell is he about to show the breeze? Because we're in this silent section.
Yeah.
But also, if anyone's ever mixed audio before, it's really difficult to make a breeze obvious and not make it wind. So I'm watching. There's this amazing shot on Toshiro Mifune's face where his face is like covered in the shadows of leaves.
Yeah.
And then suddenly those leaves just start to shake.
Yeah.
I'm like, you clever fucker. You clever fucker. That is some great filmmaking right there.
Keeping on the subject of emotion and how like this film, it almost starts off. It starts off at the gates of Rashomon. It starts off in the story. It's like, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. It's like, tell us a story. And it's like kind of pressing to tell a story. Then you look at the first act with the bandit's story, or even like the first account of how it's happened, and it's almost comical. You almost see him go across as like, it's Toshiro Mifune, and he looked at Seven Samurai. It's a bit of a to start with a comical character, and it's similar to this. I was like, no, this is interesting. It's a kind of similar approach. Well, you look at the music in this, and look at how the music's used in this film, right? Okay, this is one thing I took back from it, and it's like quite like joyous. It's like it's like an orchestra and stuff like that, and it's like quite bumpy. It's quite jovial and all this. And then you look at the end of the film. There is no music. It's deadly silent. It's just sound effects. It's just, but the silence used exceptionally well to again put forward that kind of like this has gone from. Yeah, it's a daft little story to fucking hell, this is serious and this is what's going on.
It's something that lack of music makes you feel like, oh my God, tension is being ramped up entirely.
So tense. How he's managed to do that, like, and all these things come together. Like, you keep saying Akira Kurosawa is one of the best, and like the more I read about him, the more like, well, this is only the second film, and it's kind of like made me want to do what you want to did with Studio Ghibli. He's like going a massive binge
the shit out of it.
So
hey, if you ever want to binge,
you've got those things, haven't you?
I've got a bunch of Kurosawa stuff. You want to borrow them.
Yeah.
If you ever want to just binge Kurosawa, we'll make like a month-long Kurosawa thing in film club.
I will happily do that. When I get back, I'm up for doing that.
Let's do it. So, one thing I want to point out here, which I thought was really, really funny, Kurosawa, when he was trying to get his film off the ground, he wasn't quite Kurosawa yet. He didn't have this huge reputation behind him. And the studio that he took this to, that eventually would fund it, didn't have a lot of faith in it. They were very confused by the script. They kind of didn't want him to go ahead with the script as it was. They didn't think it made sense. In fact, the head of that studio took his name off the film.
Really?
Because he didn't have faith in it at all.
Jesus Christ.
And obviously later on, the film would go on to win like a very prestigious award, I think the Venice Film Festival. And it essentially at that point opened up a lot of Eastern cinema to the rest of the world.
It's regarded like one of the best films ever made.
Yeah,
and for him to take that name, bloody hell.
Just a couple of years later, I think 4 years later, he then makes Seven Samurai. So he's already, at this point, he's already made some amazing work. He made like No Regrets About Youth and stuff previously. Some stunning work. He's an amazing, amazing filmmaker who just learned as he went and got better and better and made films that a lot of people couldn't even begin to comprehend in lots of ways. Like couldn't even begin to conceptualize. And he was doing it all, especially here, on such a micro-focused budget because this film is tiny in terms of the production.
And even it's short as well. And the kind of message that you get across with it being such a short film.
And
it's incredible.
Like, there's literally 6 actors in the entire film because they don't even show the judges and the people who they're actually are the police or anything like that.
I love that. And I love like, we'd be silly not to mention how good the acting is film and how we go back and like vantage point and say like, oh, it's an example of directors kind of messing up a great actor sort of thing. You look at this and look at the way they start the film and like you got the lumberjack guy. It's actually Kanbei in Seven Samurai.
Yeah.
Look at the way he's just like this and he's so like this and he just can't comprehend what's going on. And then he's towards the end he's like, I've got 5 kids, that's not more than like all this. And then you look at Takasha Shimura. No, sorry, that was the guy, Toshiro Mifune. And you look at his wild performance, and then he's in the court, and he's like, no, that was me, I didn't kill him, and all this. And the way that they go across, and the way that they're just such a range of emotion. I was just reading there, apparently, like he kind of like promoted them to do a kind of silent film, acting kind of ground. You know,
Oh, right,
more
yeah,
expressions with the face, and more expressions with the laughter,
Yeah.
and like kind of like overly express it. You know, like overdo it sort of thing. And it really works later on in those scenes. You know about like where it goes silent and you build more tension. Those moments, those peaks of emotion and everything. It comes out. The acting is sublime.
It is.
It's like.
Is this
God,
the
it's
first time that
incredible.
he worked with? If you know the answer to this, let us know down below, because I think this might be the first time he worked with Toshiro Mifune.
If it
And
is,
obviously,
well played.
which would go on to be like an incredible working relationship later on.
Yeah, Minoru Chaiki, if I pronounce that right, is
Who's
the
that? Sorry?
priest.
The priest.
Yeah. But the one I want to mention is the samurai's wife, Machiko Kayo. Fucking insane. Like her range, like she's gone from this, like she's quiet, and then suddenly like she's crying, then she's laughing, and she pits them off against each other. Like I was like deceived. I was
That
thinking,
laugh is terrifying.
I know,
It's absolutely.
I know.
It goes right through you.
I know,
It's absolutely horrendous.
and it's just like
Hats off to her.
and like how she is in each. We're saying them how she is in each one, and how she goes from like being a victim to being like the not the villain, but you know like the main point of focus. Like it's she's
Yeah,
ashamed.
I think her motives and her intent shift more than anybody
It's
else's.
just like that's incredible. That blew me away. The whole acting blew me away.
If you've never seen it and you want a really clever, really small, really focused, really impressive film, go and watch Rashomon. Totally worth it. But anyway, that is Rashomon. So Andy and I are going to be back once again next week where we take a look at
A better example of taking influence, a much better example of taking influence from Rashomon.
The Usual Suspects.
I can't wait. Have you seen it before?
Yeah, but a long time ago.
Cool.
Until then, get watching.